Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about my week number 5 must-add waiver wire pickups for fantasy football in 2021. Inside of today's video, we're going to be going in-depth into some running backs, wide receivers, as well as tight ends that I believe you guys should be looking to pick up off the waiver wire right now. But before we get on into things, I would like to ask if you are new to my channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, to please make sure that you do hit that subscribe button down below, because not only is it free, I put out content every single day to help you guys win your 2021 Fantasy Football Championship. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure you hit that like button down below to help boost this video up the algorithm so that more beautiful people like yourself can see today's video. I'd also like to ask if you guys are on Twitter and would like to follow me, to please do so at NotoriousFNTSY. The link to my Twitter is also down below in the description of today's video. So without further ado, let's get into my must-add waiver wire pickups for week number 5 of the 2021 fantasy football season. We begin at the running back position at number 1 with Latavius Murray, running back of the Baltimore Ravens, going up against the Indianapolis Colts this week. Now, right now, looking at the Baltimore Ravens situation, while it is murky in the backfield, it appears that Latavius Murray is going to be the lead dog, that he is going to be the lead back for the Baltimore Ravens. In week number 4, up against the Denver Broncos in Mile High, Latavius Murray had 18 rushes for 59 yards, as well as a rushing touchdown. The other backs in this game were Le'Veon Bell and Devonta Freeman. Le'Veon Bell rushed the ball 4 times for 11 yards, as well as tacking on 1 target, which led to not a single reception, and then Devonta Freeman 1 rush for 4 yards. So you might be thinking, Nick, where was Ty'Son Williams? Ty'Son Williams was a healthy scratch in this game. I thought Ty'Son Williams was going to play. It turns out that he didn't end up playing. He got healthy scratched in this game so that Latavius Murray could get more work. Le'Veon Bell saw some work, which we haven't seen at all this season. And Devonta Freeman obviously got that 1 rush. So what does this all mean? I still believe that this is going to be one of the most confusing backfields in the NFL. It's very similar, in my opinion, to the San Francisco 49ers backfield, because I believe when Elijah Mitchell is healthy, when Trey Sermon is healthy, that this is just going to be a very confusing situation week in and week out which running back to start, because some weeks the answer is going to be neither of them, and Kyle Juszczyk ends up rushing in 2 touchdowns, or the Water Boy ends up rushing in 2 touchdowns. And then here in Baltimore, it seems like it's a kind of two-headed backfield between Latavius Murray and Ty'Son Williams. Or is it? Because last week, they healthy scratched Ty'Son Williams. So I think this will be a confusing situation week in and week out, because I don't expect Ty'Son Williams to be healthy scratched every single game, because Le'Veon Bell and Devonta Freeman are in no way at this point in their career better than Ty'Son Williams. So while this does appear to be a very foggy scenario in Baltimore, I'm still going to go ahead and aggressively try to acquire Latavius Murray right now off of the waiver wire, because I do believe that whoever the running back 1 is in Baltimore week in and week out has top 12 running back upside with how much they run the ball. Next up at number 2 at the running back position, we have Damian Williams, running back of the Chicago Bears, going up against the Las Vegas Raiders in Las Vegas. David Montgomery goes out late up against the Detroit Lions on Sunday. It appears that he suffered a knee injury, but the timetable right now is uncertain. Matt Nagy says that they should be able to figure out how serious this injury is and kind of the grading of the injury and how long the timetable will be in the next couple of days. So obviously you guys are looking to put your waivers in tonight. So my assumption is that David Montgomery misses at least 1 game. I highly doubt, based upon the injury that we saw on Sunday up against the Lions, that he will be good to go this week up against the Raiders. How long-term is the injury is the biggest question, because if you blow $50, $60, $70 on the fab, 50, 60, 70% of your fab on Damian Williams, and then Montgomery comes back maybe a week or 2 later, then you're going to feel a little bit hoodwinked. So right now, I do like Damian Williams a lot. I think he will be in a very solid role here, a very solid situation for him with David Montgomery gone. But the question at hand still remains to be, when will David Montgomery come back? And I just don't think we will know for the next couple of days. In relief of David Montgomery up against the Detroit Lions, Damian Williams slapped up that Lions defense. He had 8 rushes for 55 yards and 1 touchdown with 2 receptions on 2 targets for 15 receiving yards. So he had a very solid game. He only had 8 rushes, 55 yards, and a touchdown. He had 2 targets, 2 receptions, and 15 receiving yards. Damian Williams is a running back that we all know can get it done at the NFL level. This matchup up against the Raiders does seem to be relatively solid, as the LA Chargers last night ran an absolute fucking train on that Raiders defense with Austin Eckler, with Larry Roundtree, as well as with Justin Jackson. So I do believe that Damian Williams is in a big spot to perform this week. I'm just telling you guys to be a little bit cautious, to blow all of your load, metaphorically, with all of your fab onto Damian Williams, considering David Montgomery could be back in just a couple of weeks, or maybe next week after this game up against the Raiders. Next up, we move to another running back who got a huge bump up due to injury, and that is Samaje Perine, running back of the Cincinnati Bengals, going up against the Cheeseheads, the Green Bay Packers this week. Joe Mixon is week to week with a low ankle sprain. While normally week to week sounds kind of bad, it seems like this may be just a 1 or 2 week injury for Joe Mixon based upon what I have read. Perine is now the lead back. Chris Evans is still behind him, the guy who plays Captain America, not really some other guy named Chris Evans, who is a solid running back. So this isn't going to be a 100% workhorse scenario for Samaje Perine, but he will be the main back in the backfield, getting a majority of the touches, which could lead to a solid day up against the Green Bay Packers defense. Week 4 up against the Jacksonville Jaguars. After Joe Mixon exited the game late on in the game, he had 3 rushes for 7 yards and 1 reception on 1 target for 15 yards. So Samaje Perine isn't the second coming of Bo Jackson or something. He's not going to fly into this situation for the Cincinnati Bengals and instantly become a top 12 running back. But if you are down bad at the running back position and you need a guy to start this week, there are far worse options than Samaje Perine out there. Next up, we move to New England with Brandon Bolden, running back of the Patriots, going up against the Houston Texans in Houston in this game. James White getting hurt really opened the door for one of those running backs behind Damian Harris to get the workload. Now, basically, everyone and their mother, including myself, expected Ramondre Stevenson to be out there up against Tampa Bay Tom Brady and the Buccaneers, but instead he doesn't play at all. They go with Brandon Bolden. They go with J.J. Taylor. It seems like J.J. Taylor is going to be just an outcast. He's in the doghouse, and they locked it. There's absolutely no escape for J.J. Taylor after making a fumble in that game up against the Bucs. So it appears, at least based upon the game up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, that Brandon Bolden will be the guy for the Patriots behind Damian Harris. Now, we did see Damian Harris get some decent workload in the receiving game, which I did honestly assume once James White went down that Damian Harris's uptick in targets would occur, but Brandon Bolden will still be a viable option in this backfield. Last week up against the Bucs, he had 1 rush for 0 yards, but what you're kind of buying into for Brandon Bolden has nothing to do with the rushing game. It's very similar to when you draft James White and you're like, you know what, maybe this guy will get like 5-6 rushes a game, but what you're really looking for is maybe 6, 7, 8 targets every single game that is going to make up for that. Now, Brandon Bolden is basically an exclusive ad if you are in PPR or half PPR, because 5 receptions or 6 receptions, 7 receptions for 50 yards isn't going to do jack shit for you if you're in a standard league. Last week up against the Bucs, he had 6 receptions on 6 targets for 51 yards. The biggest concern here is that Ramondre Stevenson might just play up against the Texans. He might just be the second string running back up against the Texans. But right now, based upon what we know and based upon Bill Belichick's track record with not necessarily loving to use rookie running backs, I think Brandon Bolden is in a solid position for success week in and week out, especially in a PPR and half PPR format. Next up, we got the final running back of today's video, Michael Carter, running back of the New York Football Jets, going up against the Atlanta Falcons. Now, Michael Carter, he could be the lead back in New York. He may not be. Between him and Tevin Coleman, it is definitely a dicey situation, but Michael Carter is no longer buried in the fucking depth chart behind guys like Ty Johnson, behind all of those running backs. He is now one of the premier guys in New York for the Jets. Now, have the Jets turn the page, flip the page on being a complete and utter fucking dumpster fire in the National Football League. Game 1, Game 2, they look like they have absolutely no idea what they are doing, except for actually in Week 1, they played all right. Week number 2, week number 3, they looked like they had no idea what they were doing. And then in week number 4, up against the Tennessee Titans, it was like Zach Wilson was on Viagra because he was finally able to get it up. He was finally able to play up to a team. But Nick, the Tennessee Titans, they didn't have AJ Green, they didn't have Julio Jones, so they were probably going to lose. And I understand that, right? That is obviously a big factor up against the Tennessee Titans. But the Jets actually looked like they had a semblance of an offense, and they played quite well. The addition of Jamison Crowder, who we're going to talk about in a couple of minutes, really helped out this Jets offense. Week 4 up against the Titans, Michael Carter had 13 rushes for 38 yards and 1 tug in that game, as well as 1 reception on 3 targets for -4 yards. Now, Michael Carter isn't a running back that you're going to be able to rely on week in and week out because of how confusing this backfield is with Tevin Coleman there. But eventually, I do believe that Michael Carter is going to be able to surpass Tevin Coleman, and he will be the true lead back in New York for the Jets. This week up against the Falcons, if you're in a deep league, I'm fine playing Michael Carter. I do eventually think, though, that he is going to become the lead back there, and if the Jets continue on this trend of actually being a solid football team, then Michael Carter will be an absolute steal right now in week 5 versus the price you may have to pay for him as the #1 waiver wire at a week or two now down the road. So before we get on into the wide receiver must-add players of the week, I'd like to ask if you have ended up enjoying, to please make sure that you do hit that subscribe button down below, and whether you are new or not, to please make sure you hit that like button down below. It helps us out a ton. I would appreciate it immensely. So now on to the wide receiver section of the video, headlined by Jamison Crowder, the guy that we just talked about a couple of seconds ago. So Jamison Crowder, I did not honestly think that Jamison Crowder would have this extreme influence over the Jets offense that he had last week, because Corey Davis was the main target for Mr. Zach Wilson the first couple games of the season, but the offense just looked so bad the last couple of weeks that I was like, you know what, Jamison Crowder is not going to be able to make this team do a complete and utter 180, but that did end up happening, and Jamison Crowder is going to be one of the main leaders in the clubhouse at the receiving position between him and Corey Davis. Up against the Titans, Jamison Crowder had 7 receptions on 9 targets for 61 receiving yards and a touchdown in that game, so I do believe that Jamison Crowder will be peppered in targets just like he was with mono man Sam Darnold back when he was the starting quarterback of the Jets, because Jamison Crowder to me is not some elite talent at the wide receiver position. He just benefits heavily from the Jets heaving the ball his way year in and year out. And I thought, hey, maybe that was just a mono man Sam Darnold thing. Maybe only Sam Darnold loves throwing the ball to Jamison Crowder, but I guess that was wrong. And Mr. Zach Wilson likes doing the same thing, so Jamison Crowder is my favorite wide receiver ad of the week, because I just feel like even if the Jets aren't as good as they were last week, they're still going to be throwing a lot in these games because they are down, and Jamison Crowder is going to be a huge benefactor of that, and that also, apparently, Jamison Crowder getting put into this offense, injected into this offense, really helped out Corey Davis, so now Corey Davis seems like he's going to be back to being a weekly starter. At number 2, we have Emmanuel Sanders, wide receiver of the no one circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills, going up against the Kansas City Chiefs, a rematch from the AFC Championship game from last year. And I'm pretty sure this is also a rematch of a Tuesday night football game from last year, if I'm not mistaken, when COVID ended up delaying the game. If I'm wrong, I apologize, but I remember there being at least one Tuesday night football game. Or maybe it was Wednesday night, but I'm pretty sure it was Tuesday night. So Emmanuel Sanders, he wasn't there last time these two teams played, but Emmanuel Sanders, man, I thought he was over the hill. I thought it was time for an Emmanuel Sanders decline, because he hasn't played all that great the last couple of years. But in Buffalo, his career has been revitalized, and he looks really good. He has been very, very consistent thus far through the first 4 games of the season. I discussed him in last week's waiver wire ad video, but it didn't seem like enough people added him, so we're going to go ahead and talk about him again. Up against the Houston Texans last week in that absolute shellacking of the Houston Texans defense, he had 5 receptions on 6 targets for 74 receiving yards. That means that this is the 4th week in a row that Emmanuel Sanders has had at least 6 or more targets in the game. This week, they go up against the Kansas City Chiefs. You would expect this to be a tit-for-tat, back-and-forth affair. Last week, up against the Texans, the Buffalo Bills bent them over the table and fucked them raw dog all night long until the game was like 40-0. This week, the Chiefs are going to fight back, so Josh Allen's going to have to throw the ball more in the game so that kissin' titties Mitchell Trubisky doesn't have to come in and rush a touchdown. Josh Allen should be in for the whole game, which is going to further up the amount of volume that Emmanuel Sanders could see. If for some crazy reason Emmanuel Sanders is still available, you're going to want to pick him up right now. At number 3, we have my boy Darnell. Here comes the Mooney. Mooney. Wide receiver of the Chi-Town Bears, going up against the Las Vegas Raiders in Viva Las Vegas. Darnell Mooney, please Coach Nagy, please, Matt Nagy, allow Justin Fields to be the starting quarterback of the team, because it seems like that bozo, that absolute stooge, is going to go ahead and throw Andy Dalton in this week. If that ends up happening, I might break my fucking computer. I swear, I'm going to break my monitor. Has anyone ever seen that video of that guy who gets really pissed off? I think he's playing FIFA, and he's like, I'm going to break my monitor. I swear, I sounded just like him right there, if anyone's ever seen the video. So, what I'm talking about here is that the fact is that Matt Nagy is such a fucking idiot that for some reason this guy thinks that maybe it's okay to just go from, you know what, we actually looked pretty good with Justin Fields, right? Fuck it. Let's take him out and throw Andy Dalton in. Please do not do that, Matt Nagy. Now, it appears that Matt Nagy made the smart decision, and he wasn't calling the plays last week. They let the O coordinator do that. It appears. It just has to be that way, right? Because the Chicago Bears offense actually looked good. But what sucks is if you have Allen Robinson, it appears like it might be Darnell Mooney season in Chicago, and Allen Robinson is going to continue to fall deeper and deeper into the depths of being a bust in fantasy football this year, because it seems like Justin Fields loves throwing the ball his way to Darnell Mooney. Week 4 up against the Lions, he had 5 receptions on 7 targets for 125 receiving yards. Now I understand, but Nick, that was up against the Detroit Lions. The Lions defense is fucking ass, man. Don't you know that? And I understand the Lions defense isn't very good, but at the end of the day, maybe a page has turned for the Chi-Town Bears, just like it maybe did for the Jumbo Jets, and maybe these rookie quarterbacks are going to look great for the rest of the season. Let's just hope that Matt Nagy doesn't make a dumb decision and start Andy Dalton this week. Next wide receiver to discuss here is Curtis Samuel, wide receiver of the Washington football team, going up against the New Orleans Saints. Now, Logan Thomas right now is considered week to week with a hamstring injury, and that should open the door further for Curtis Samuel. Now, with Logan Thomas there, if I'm being honest with you guys, in the offseason I made a video called Do Not Draft Players, and Curtis Samuel was a part of that video. Because with Logan Thomas there, I just did not believe that there was going to be this huge part of the offense that was just going to shift to Curtis Samuel when he returned from the injury. But now with Logan Thomas gone, Curtis Samuel should slot in as the number 2 receiving target on this team, obviously behind Mr. F1 Scary, Terry McLaurin. Week 4 up against the Atlanta Falcons in his first start, he went 4 for 4, like he was at Wendy's, for 19 receiving yards. So again, when Logan Thomas returns, I'm not too sure how big the role is for Curtis Samuel, but to me, when looking at all the other wideouts on the team, like Adam Humphries, all the other guys on the team, I just feel like Curtis Samuel is easily the number 2 most talented wide receiver on the team. He has been with Riverboat Ron in the past in Carolina, so I do expect some trickery to occur in this offense where they're handing the ball off to Curtis Samuel to even further piss off those who have Antonio Gibson, but it is what it is. Curtis Samuel is a solid pickup on the week. Going up against the Saints at number 5, we have Devontae Parker, wide receiver of my Miami Dolphins, going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Tampa Bay. Now, I believed that the Dolphins last week were going to go into Indianapolis, and not into Indianapolis, it was in Miami, but you get what I'm saying. Going up against the Colts, they were going to beat down that garbage-ass defense. Jacoby Brissett was going to play amazing. That didn't happen. So, my belief here is that the Bucs drop at least 72 points on the head of the Dolphins. So, my thoughts on that probably mean that the Dolphins are going to beat the Buccaneers. That the Dolphins are going to somehow win this game, and then next week, when Tua is able to return, there's going to be some type of a quarterback controversy. Now, that's just my thoughts. Those are just my mind thinking about this, because it seems like I'm always wrong on thinking about if the Dolphins will win a game or not. So going up against the Bucs this week, this is a tough matchup, but the Bucs defense is all injured, all of the DBs, and it seems like the Bucs defense might be in to get plowed a little bit by Mr. Devontae Parker. The reason why I like Devontae Parker as a waiver wire ad is not because of who Devontae Parker is. I'm personally someone who doesn't think Devontae Parker is all that great of a player, but Will Fuller broke his finger and is considered week to week right now. Now, I'm pretty sure that there is a way Will Fuller can play, but I doubt the doctor's going to want him to do that. This elevates Devontae Parker with Will Fuller hurt and week to week with the broken finger to be the number 2 receiving option behind Jalen Waddle. Regardless of how far Jalen Waddle is down the field, most of the time he's like 5 feet away from Jacoby Brissett. He is just getting pounded with targets. He is getting peppered with targets. He's getting thrown the ball every 5 fucking seconds. So Devontae Parker is the number 2, but that does still have some value in any offense. Week 4 up against the Colts, Devontae Parker scored his first touchdown of the season on 4 receptions, on 9 targets for 77 receiving yards. And like I said, he scored his first touchdown of the season. While on paper you may be a little bit nervous about going up against the Bucs defense, it could be a lot worse, meaning that the Bucs could actually be a completely healthy defense, and then Devontae Parker would probably be screwed. Final receiver, then we're getting into the tight ends, is my main man, Flash! Savior of the universe! Flash Gordon, baby. Josh Gordon of the Kansas City Chiefs going up against the Buffalo Bills. Now, in my mind, I know that Josh Gordon's probably going to do nothing. He's probably going to be irrelevant in his first ever start, but pick him up anyways because sparks could fly like a Katy Perry song. Josh Gordon going up against the Buffalo Bills. Don't start him. Don't be crazy, don't start him, but he may just be the second best receiver on the team that plays wide receiver, because obviously the second best receiver on this team is probably Kelsey. So behind Kelsey, you got McCole Hardman, you got the Chip himself, Byron Pringle, you got Demarcus Robinson. I think that Josh Gordon might be better than them. So keep it steady. Make sure you pick up Josh Gordon, but don't just fucking blow your wad on Josh Gordon because he may just be irrelevant this year. Now on to the tight end section of the video. Again, if you have ended up enjoying, make sure you hit that like button as well as hitting that subscribe button down below. So the tight ends here, we got Dawson Knox one time, if you are with me, tight end of the Buffalo Bills going up against the Kansas City Chiefs. Despite being virtually irrelevant in Dawson Knox, first year of his career in 2019, second year in 2020, in 2021, the doors have opened for a Dawson Knox amazing season. The guy's on fire. He's a top 6 tight end right now in fantasy football, depending on the format you play in. Week 4 up against the Texans, 5 receptions on 8 targets for 37 yards and 2 touchdowns. Now, a lot of Dawson Knox value inherently comes with scoring that touchdown, with getting that tug. But I understand that may worry you. But the reason why I'm not as worried is because it's like Robert Tonyan in Green Bay. Sure, he really heavily relies on the touchdown, but you're going to score a bunch when you're on the fucking Packers, and you're going to score a bunch when you're on the Buffalo Bills. So don't worry about the touchdown dependency for Dawson Knox. Pick him up right now if he is available. He's not available in every league, but some people are still sleeping a little bit on Dawson Knox, and it is time to get him right now. Final tight end, final player of the video, Dalton Schultz, tight end of the Dallas Cowboys, going up against the New York Football Giants. Back in the New York groove for the Giants, get their first W of the season. Eat a W. That was Jameis Winston style. That may have sounded a bit weird if you are just listening and not watching the podcast, but I just ate a W, Jameis Winston style. Dalton Schultz up against the Giants for the Cowboys. Dalton Schultz appears to be the number 1 tight end there, ahead of Blake Jarwin. 2 weeks in a row, this motherfucker has scored a touchdown. Week 4 up against the Panthers, he went 6 receptions on 8 targets. Would have been much more nicer if he could have went 6 of 9. Very nice for 58 yards, but he only went 6 of 8 for 58 yards and a tug. So, Dalton Schultz is on one of the better offensive teams in the NFL, just like Dawson Knox. So pick him up. There's a lot worse options than Dalton Schultz, and Dalton Schultz is on a fucking roll. He's on a roll. Pick him up now, because again, after this week, Dawson Knox and Dalton Schultz will be picked up. They will have been picked up in your league. There's no way they make it to week number 6. So go ahead and pick them up now before it is too late. Thank you guys all so much for watching. If you did end up enjoying, again, please make sure you hit that subscribe button as well as that like button. I love you guys so much. I'll see you guys later with another banger of a video. I got to do my midterm later, so that's going to be very fun. So wish me luck down below in the comments. So let me know who you guys' favorite waiver wire ad is of the week. I love you guys all. Stay safe as always. Goodbye.